Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the Conservation Podcast, the show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I am joined by Tobby Odhacha, an environmental educator whose work in Kenya earned him a spot on the NAAEE 30 Under 30 Environmental Education list. Very impressive. He's here to tell us all about how he fell in love with nature and how watching his mother cultivate her own green space inspired him. As well as that, he also gives us a step-by-step guide on successful environmental education. How, where, why, and who, and all of the other things you need to know to be a fantastic, brilliant, wonderful environmental educator. He tells it all. So if that's what you're interested in, stay right here because you'll be an expert by the end. Finally, we also chat about one of his favourite underappreciated African species, which is, of course, hyenas. It's the second time we have visited them on this kind of series, and I loved the opportunity to talk about them again. So great, amazing. If you haven't listened to the full episode about them, go back and listen to the episode with Christine from a few weeks ago. It's brilliant, it's great. It's wonderful. But before I take up too much more of your time, thank you so much for listening. And without further ado, let's get started. And welcome back to the show. I am now joined by Tobby Odhacha, an environmental education specialist who was named as one of the NAAEE's 30 Under 30 for 2022 and is working currently in Kenya to inspire the next generation of conservationists to love and kind of value and cherish the wildlife that is round about them. So first of all, thank you so much for joining me today, Toby.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this show, the Pangolin Show, and I'm much honored.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure to have you here. It's great to talk to you, and it's great to meet you because, yes, for listeners, I first became kind of aware of everything you do, as part of the kind of award schemes that the North American Association for Environmental Education runs, and then ever since I kind of found out about your work, I've been really interested to talk to you. So it's fantastic to finally get to sit down and have a chat about what you do. I guess I kind of gave a little bit of an introduction there to kind of you, but it was very brief and it didn't really tell the listeners a lot about you. It just kind of was very vague. So do you want to introduce yourself a bit better and tell them who you are, a little bit about you and what you do?
Okay, that's fine, Jack. So, Tobias Odhacha, but I prefer being called Toby. Yeah, Toby Odhacha. And first, I always refer to myself as a nature enthusiast. I do really love being out in nature. And then, professionally, I'm an environmental educator. I've been doing environmental education, or more so towards the conservation side, that is wildlife education, for the past like 4.5 years. And my background is in natural resource management and wildlife management. That is, I I studied wildlife natural resource management in for my bachelor's course, and that's what I really wanted to study, because yes, I have so much passion for wildlife, but then I wanted to study more on what's really around that. What, like, I just wanted to explore more on all the natural resources that we have. So yeah, so I'm a nature enthusiast, an environmental educator, and also I do love hiking and camping. For the past 1 year,
Mhm.
it's been full of camping.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I feel like that is something we have in common. Being from Scotland, there is plenty of places to hike, and it's something that I am also like. I feel like it's one of those hobbies that everybody says they have in Scotland because there's so many beautiful places, and I can imagine being from such a naturally beautiful place as
Mhm.
you are, like it must be the same that you just want to be out and kind of spending all day in nature all of the time, even when you're not working.
Yeah, though there's being a nature enthusiast in Kenya is something that for some people they think it's for the elite, but then
Hmm.
because you find Kenya used to be having large, vast spaces, like large,
Hmm.
vast natural spaces, but then most of these spaces have been going, like people have been invading these spaces for, let me say, development. Land fragmentation has been on the rise, and they're not so much. There's still much left, but then they're under lots of threat
Hmm.
due to mostly poor planning. You find people are
Hmm.
always invading these spaces. More so if it's government land, people always want to try and. So you find, and then you find, growing up, we used to walk long distances as well. So someone will be like, why should I hike? And yet I hiked when I was a kid. But
Hmm.
then living in Nairobi city, which is the capital city of Kenya,
Hmm.
it's full of, we always call it like there's so much buildings. There's a lot
Hmm.
of buildings. That it's a jungle of just buildings and tarmac, and yeah, there's not so much. There's not so much green spaces. They are there,
Hmm.
but then there's also so much need to protect them. So when you live in town, it's so chaotic a bit. So at times during my free time, when I was still working in the city, I could just, if it's an afternoon when I'm free, I just go out,
Hmm.
explore nature, and then just trying to learn as much and just to connect with nature as much as I could. And through this also I get to really learn something new that I can be able to share with the children that I do
Hmm.
educate. I've been working with Wildlife Direct for the past 4.5 years
Hmm.
till recently, and what we always do to them has always been just connecting them with nature, introducing them to the endangered wildlife of Kenya and Africa as a whole, so that they get to learn more about them and just treasure them. And
Hmm.
it's only when they do that that they can take action to ensure their
Hmm.
conservation. So for me, being an environmental educator has always been just trying to learn as much as possible about everything around us,
Hmm.
the environment as a whole. Yep.
Hmm. That's really, really That's yeah, that's really, really interesting, and it's touched on so many things that like I want to talk to you about. I think there's so many ideas there have come up, and like I'm like, oh, I want to ask you so many questions already. But before we get into kind of all of the detail, maybe of the work that you're doing now, I think something really interesting that you said was kind of like that people sometimes think in Kenya that kind of hiking and those types of activities are just for the elite or something like. So I wondered, like, where did your love of nature come from in the first place? Is it something you've always loved, or is it like where did that kind of interest in the natural world come from?
I'd say for my interest, it came mostly from, I developed this interest at a very early age. Um,
Mm,
my mom is a teacher, a primary school teacher. I don't know, maybe if that's how, I don't know in Scotland how you call it, but
mm.
the primary,
Yeah, we have primary school. It's primary school teacher here as well.
yeah. So my mom is a primary school teacher, and she was a patron to like the wildlife club
Hmm.
in the school. And then I come from the western region of Kenya. My home is
Hmm.
not very far from one of the, well, it's a very beautiful national park in Kenya, but then people don't are not that much familiar with it. It's known as Ruma National Park,
Hmm.
and there used to be animals that used to, like mostly the carnivores, the leopards, hyenas, mostly. They used to come and prey on our livestock. And
Hmm.
then when I used to travel, so coming from my dad's home to my mom's home, at least I remember seeing the wildlife along the way when we used to go there, though it was just a one off thing. But then it's something that stuck with me. And like it's something that I still, as I grew up, I had a picture of just seeing. It was some buffaloes. It was a large herd of buffaloes,
Mhm.
and it's a memory that remained in my mind for quite a while. And then as I grew up and I studied the school that my mom used to teach in, she used to engage my fellow students, like the children we were studying with, in environmental activities, tree planting,
Mhm.
and just cleaning, school cleanups. And I got interested in this, and somehow I developed my interest. Though in primary school I wasn't as very active, because the school, it was a public primary school, so we didn't get to like go for tours and such. So but that's where like the passion that my mom had, it's what really kind of like gave me the interest
Mhm.
to pursue and just try to appreciate the environment, because she planted a lot of trees. Our home is in an asal area, a semi-arid area, and she converted, like she just took a small piece, about an eighth of an acre, where our house used to be, and she planted lots of trees and made
Mhm.
a mini forest, something that had not been seen around. Like most of the people were cutting down trees. Well, here she was planting trees, and
Mhm.
just made a microclimate within our home. We used to have lots of birds coming around, and after that, some people also at least knew that, because the major problem with tree planting there was livestock destroying and
Mhm.
just destroying the trees that people are planting. After realizing, most people realizing that, oh, we can use live fences and just fence our compound and the trees will grow. Yeah, we started
Mhm.
seeing people planting trees, and through this, after that, I went to high school and joined the environment club, and I realized that this was the path that I wanted to follow, and it helped me choose. I didn't have I didn't have a lot of struggle choosing my career path, like choosing the course that I wanted to do university.
Mhm.
So I went straight to doing environmental management, and then proceeded to doing Bachelor of Science in Natural Resource Management. So it's something that I still love doing,
Mhm.
and at least I've always loved more so the community aspect of it, just getting to interact with communities and just getting a chance to do something different for nature
Mhm.
has always been something I've loved.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's fantastic, actually. That's such a nice story that, like, it was like, yeah, a parent that inspired you, and then you're doing the same thing now for hopefully the next generation of like people to be invested and interested in wildlife and the stuff that's around about them. Um, and it's so interesting to hear like the story about kind of, yeah, planting trees and just like like in an area where things were going kind of, or being removed, or natural things were being taken away, like having someone having the confidence to like go and then replant trees and re-encourage wildlife is such a nice thing to hear. Because yeah, I notice similar things here in Scotland where it'll be kind of houses will be thrown up all over the place, and there'll just be concrete put down and all sorts of things. But we always have, and so you'll go around huge areas of my hometown and you won't see any wildlife. But then you look in some gardens that have kind of trees or the bird feeders up or different little things, and like the wildlife that you find in those spaces is kind of thriving and like exciting and colorful and all sorts of wonderful things. So it's interesting to hear like a similar story from, like, yeah, from so far away from where I am. Like it's nice to hear like, oh, it's a relatable experience. For me it's really really exciting to hear about. And I guess then when you were growing up, like I sometimes think p- kids don't always want to be like their parents necessarily. But when you were growing up, say, did you ever expect like, oh, one day I'm going to be a teacher or an environmental educator as well? Or was that kind of a surprise as you got older? You're like, oh, I actually, yeah, I do want to do like similar things to my parents.
Yeah. So okay, of course, I never wanted to do what my mom was doing. That was teaching. I really never
Yeah.
saw myself becoming a teacher. It's
Hmm.
something I really wished I really never envisioned,
Hmm.
and it's a path I didn't want to follow. What I really followed was her passion for nature, like
Mhm.
what she was doing, just teaching people about engaging the children in tree planting activities. We used to see even
Mhm.
some people, locals, going hunting with lots
Mhm.
of dogs. They could go hunting, chase around some impalas, and it was something as kids we never liked as much,
Mhm.
because also at times there used to be human hippo conflicts because we live next to Lake Victoria.
Uh-huh.
So like I just heard that I together with some of my cousins and even friends, we just heard that we knew that even this wildlife just deserved to live, and just that having that passion and passion for nature, just caring, just being cautious about the wildlife and the environment around me at that young age,
Mhm.
and her trying a level efforts, the level however much she could to just change the community, is what really is something that it's what I followed.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I followed that, but then I ended up being a teacher, though not like a primary school teacher, but an environmental
Mhm.
educator, but which I find even more interesting because I've had to interact with lots and lots of children across
Mhm.
Kenya through clubs in which we've introduced these children to appreciate mostly not just the big five, because you find in Kenya most of the time when you ask people about wildlife, they always talk just about the big five. But
Mhm.
then through through the work that I've been doing, we've been able to tell everyone to just appreciate whatever nature, whatever is around them. It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be just wildlife, because you find when you tell people about wildlife, they always think it has to be an animal.
Mhm.
It has to be. They don't remember that even plants, grasses, maybe insects are also
Mhm.
part of wildlife, and even just the environment itself. There's need for. It's only when the environment is thriving that we can have wildlife thriving as well, and it's only when
Mhm.
communities are also healthy that we can have wildlife thriving as well. So you can't like separate people from the environment or people from wildlife.
Mhm.
They always need to put the people first. When people,
Mhm.
because yes, as a wildlife educator, I'd really love to, as a nature enthusiast, I'd really love to see thriving green spaces, wildlife maybe which were really endangered. There, I'd love to see populations growing and getting
Mhm.
some good news. But then this can't happen when you find communities are not are not empowered. Communities are not living in good state. It's only when people are knowledgeable. It's only when people feel appreciated that
Mhm.
that you'll find also even our environments being healthier, and our wildlife also thriving. So yeah, I'm so happy. Even my mom once first when I joined the environmental education space, I didn't tell her that I was a teacher
Mhm.
until she started hearing about our trips to the schools. We used to work with schools
Mhm.
across Kenya, so we'd go to schools in different regions across Kenya. So when I told her that, oh, we're going to this school in central Kenya, we're going to this school we'll be coming to Nyanza to visit this school and school. She's like, are you a teacher? And I was like, no, yeah, I'm not a teacher. I only am engaging. I engage children in environmental education. But she was like, oh, you're teaching. Of course, you're teaching. You're teaching children. Yeah. I
Mhm.
was like, yeah. But I'm glad. At least I've learned a lot
Mhm.
from just interaction. I think teaching is one thing that people might think it's so stressful. But then
Mhm.
when one thing I've learned over the years is when you teach, that you have an opportunity to share knowledge, and as you share knowledge, you gain a lot as well from
Mhm.
the people you share your knowledge with, be it children or even adults.
Mhm.
There's a lot that you get to learn in the process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, that's so interesting because yeah, and I couldn't agree more on the kind of yeah point about yeah you learn from the people you teach because it's something that yeah I feel like every classroom I've ever had I've walked away because someone's put their hand up and they have asked a question that I hadn't thought about, or they've kind of looked at something in a way that I just my perception of the world I hadn't thought about, like oh or like so no it's really really interesting to hear that yeah that yeah I couldn't agree more on that. um it's so so interesting, and again, so many points were raised there where I'm like, oh, I have so many questions. But like, I think the main one that I want to kind of like, I think the natural step would be, I guess, to like ask, I suppose, about your work a little bit in a little bit more detail because you talked about some of the challenges of kind of or like some of the challenges that you face, kind of educating people or getting people to engage, or some of the challenges they face that make them disengage. Like, so all really difficult complicated stuff, but how do you like what sort of things do you do like your in your job or in your kind of life? What is your kind of I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this because it's quite a complicated question and I don't want to ask too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to ask is what is the yeah how do you what kind of job what is what is it you do
What's my work
basically is
involved?
the
Yeah.
simplest way of putting it. What is it you do to kind of yeah raise awareness or educate people? Like what programs are you involved in, and what is it that you do?
Yeah. So basically, the work of an environmental educator is first
Hmm.
you need to work on developing educational materials.
Yeah.
So you have to first first of all you have to be appreciative of what you want to teach.
Yeah.
You have to love and gain knowledge as well about wildlife and the environment in general.
Hmm.
And then after that, you need to develop materials that are going to guide you into making these people understand what you are teaching them.
Hmm.
So just creating, or I'd say developing resources, educational resources, which are simple, because you see, it's one thing we don't want to. Okay, when working with clubs, mostly even children, you don't need them. You have to put the the co-curricular activity to be a bit more fun, not as it
Hmm.
doesn't need to be someone. It's something that people should gain passion in. It's not something that you
Hmm.
should be telling someone that you should protect wildlife like it's something they don't have an option of. You should first create simple and fun learning materials that are let people that are eye openers, that
Yeah.
let people know that there's this and this threats. You don't just don't tell them that lions are endangered. You open their eyes to tell them why are lions endangered, what are the
Hmm.
threats which are facing lions, what how are we been living with lions, why are they still there, and what can our generation do to ensure that
Hmm.
we we don't that we have these lions for the next generation as well.
Hmm.
So you introduce people to the threats that are facing these animals, and once you do this, so the materials you create help people introduce them to these animals, the
Hmm.
the amazing things about the animals, the threats these animals are facing, and then once they start realizing all this, you also create opportunities for them to maybe just because you find in Kenya, or I'll say most of Africa, in being that most of the wildlife, by the way, in Kenya are always found outside protected areas.
Hmm.
Yes, we have them mostly in protected areas. You can always, when you visit protected areas, you can see them. But then, funnily enough, they don't love being, however vast those protected areas are, they'll always be found outside in the communities.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, so you find when animals interact with the communities, there are always some negative interactions at times. Of course, people have learned to coexist with them, but there'll always be cases of human wildlife conflict, cases of maybe zoonotic diseases. And so
Hmm.
the interactions with most of us, even I, when I was still a kid, the interaction I first had with wildlife was on the negative. You see people. going hunting, you hear a leopard or a hyenas come to your and maybe preyed on your goats, on my parents' goats, and it's something that's still going on. So you find
Mhm.
that most interactions are always in the negative. So when you create opportunities for people, or maybe as part of the activities as an environmental educator, you need to let people see and just interact with this wildlife from a positive side, from the tourist side. It doesn't have to be, it's an educational trip, yes, but then they get to also just visit these animals in their natural habitats,
Mhm.
get to appreciate the need for, as to why we need to protect such natural habitats, green spaces, because you
Mhm.
find, yes, we don't want each and every kid that we are teaching to become an environmentalist or to become a wildlife biologist.
Mhm.
We want them to follow their different career paths and their different career choices that they will choose. But
Mhm.
we want them to just have that consciousness, just being able to know that there's need for this wildlife, each and every
Mhm.
species as a role in the ecosystem. And even maybe if there are engineers, or maybe they become any profession, just being
Mhm.
cautious of their environment and their actions is
Mhm.
something that we always try and instill in our modules. So we develop resources, and then we create opportunities for I create opportunities for people to just interact with nature. And
Mhm.
then the other thing that we also do is most of the activities just organized for maybe projects.
Mhm.
One project that I've come to really really love is citizen science.
Mhm.
Citizen science is where you create opportunities for people to contribute to science, and
Mhm.
mostly you can say through the iNaturalist app.
Mhm.
So we've partnered, as I was working with Wildlife Direct, we're partnering with other organizations. We could organize for maybe children, because we realized yes, there are some public people who are taking part in these citizen science projects, but the public
Mhm.
who we also realized were taking part in these projects were either they're not as much of a public as much, because you find
Mhm.
the the people living maybe just near to the conservation areas. Of course, they're public members, but then they know much about the wildlife. So we realized there was there was need for children to just also take part in citizen science as well. So we could take children to, if it's a game count, just take them. They get to learn the
Mhm.
diverse species that are found in the parks. If it's like a citizen science where maybe people want to, there's something known as Grevy's Zebras Rally, in which Grevy's zebras are one of the endangered zebras in Kenya. So
Mhm.
children also get to go out there. We give them the equipment, which are like cameras. They get to photograph and be able to help with just discover, just they help with knowing the population, helping the
Mhm.
scientists. They get to meet scientists in this process. They get
Mhm.
to learn that the uniqueness of even animals that they thought, oh, zebra is a zebra, or maybe there's no way someone can tell one zebra from the other.
Mhm.
They get to learn a lot when they get to do citizen science. So, and they get inspired. They get to know
Mhm.
the wide, how wide the conservation or environmental space is, because you find some people, when they think of maybe having passion for wildlife, the only thing they might think of is being a ranger, or maybe a security guard. They don't
Mhm.
realize there's the communication side of it, there's the photography side of it, there's the science side, there's the education side.
Mhm.
There's a lot. So when they get to go for these citizen science activities, they get to really just meet a lot of people. They get to meet lots of people who inspire them, or who they
Mhm.
get to learn from. And yeah, so we do try as much as possible to involve children and also youths as well in
Mhm.
citizen science projects. And then the other thing that we also do is yeah, so the citizen science projects might be like last year. There's a Great Southern Bioblitz that we took part in, which
Mhm.
was you go out, explore nature, document lots and lots of observation around
Mhm.
just around you. So we in that we engaged children and university students.
Mhm.
So apart from citizen science project, there's the organizing for day trips to conservation areas or to green spaces, and also
Mhm.
camping expeditions. And then the other thing that's part of the work of an environmental educator, of maybe part of that has been part of my work, teacher trainings, where we do
Mhm.
facilitate teacher trainings. So because we work with children in clubs, in school clubs,
Mhm.
and most of the time we are not like always there with the children. It's the teachers who are always there with them. So
Mhm.
so we always need to equip these teachers with
Mhm.
resources. After maybe making resources, you'll give them to the teachers because you'll always
Mhm.
not be present. We work with lots of schools, so you need to at least teachers will always interact with children on a daily basis,
Mhm.
and running the clubs will always be like a co-curricular activity. So you need to equip
Mhm.
these teachers with a first. You need to instill to them the passion so that
Mhm.
they get to do it voluntarily and with much enthusiasm.
Mhm.
And then you need to give them the resources that they can always use to engage the children. And then you also need to just keep engaging with the teachers as well, so that
Mhm.
they get to learn much about the rising issues that are arising, just
Mhm.
sharing much on the current state of affairs in regards to wildlife and environment.
Mhm.
So teacher training and just engaging the teachers is another thing, and also fundraising,
Mhm.
because you need funds to run the project. So there's at
Mhm.
times a lot of grant writing that you have to do, so that at least
Mhm.
you have the you're able to fund the activities that you are doing.
Mhm.
So, but generally, I'd say it's fun. Um, yeah, education is fun, and
Mhm.
the best thing I love about it is it has it goes around. It's wide. It has a very wide scope.
Mhm.
Yeah. Apart from previously, I used to have I really wanted to dwell more in research, and even
Mhm.
now I still think I'd really want to focus on research, just so that
Mhm.
I get to learn more about specific wildlife. But I'd
Mhm.
say the good thing about education is you have a chance to research as well. You have a chance to learn a lot about
Mhm.
different species as wide as you can, and you have a chance to inspire a lot of people. Because for
Mhm.
research, one thing which is really troubling is you find people do research, but then they never get a chance to share it much with the public.
Mhm. Mhm.
Some of them will just be kept in journals, and you find
Yeah.
the same people. It's always just researchers who are reading those journals and those findings, but the public don't get a chance to know much about the the outcome, or maybe what has been found in those research. So I think I've loved doing this,
Mhm.
and it's something that even if I get off the environmental education space, I'd still be doing, just engaging people in
Mhm.
appreciating, uh, knowing that there'll always be a lot in nature that's undiscovered. So just
Mhm.
telling people to continue exploring nature, continue appreciating nature, and continue taking action. That will
Mhm.
always be like my mantra. Just
Uh-huh.
yep.
No, that was so interesting, and I think what was really nice is there was a couple of things that all kind of linked throughout that answer. Everything it always kind of came back to that idea of like nature and wildlife can be for anybody, and it doesn't have to be that, oh, I'm going to become a conservationist, like, or a scientist or an environmental educator. Like conservation and wildlife and nature are there for everybody, and they are there for us all to appreciate, and we all have an impact on them. So the importance of kind of reaching as many people and as diverse a range of people, no matter what their jobs are or whatever it is, like, so interesting to kind of hear, like, yeah, that's it, because it's such a challenge, but it's so interesting to hear kind of your take on it, and your kind of, yeah, perspective on the whole issue is really, really interesting, really, really interesting. And yes, it's very, very fun. Like, it is, like, above everything else, it's like an excuse for us to be outdoors and looking at animals or plants or cool things. So it's, yeah, it's yeah, I can see exactly why, like, exactly why it's fun, and exactly why you love it. I guess, like, I'm going to come back to the fun part in a second, but what I wanted to ask about before I got to that kind of question was kind of talk about, I guess, like, you talked about the challenges and all the kind of day-to-day stuff that you go through. Like, when it comes to the people you engage with, and particularly, I guess, young people and, like, children, like, do you see, like, from the moment they kind of come into one of your classes, what kind of changes do you see in them by the time that they leave? Do you see, like, a growth and, like, a greater appreciation for everything everything round about them?
Yeah, I've come to. There's always been like I've come to see a change, positive
Mhm,
most of the time, because one thing I've noticed with children is working with children is fun. Also, as a nature
mhm.
enthusiast, because
Yeah.
first of all, the mind is still, let's say, can I say unpolluted, or the mind is still
No.
fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, that
um,
makes sense. Yeah.
and you find that they still have a lot of interest to learn
Mhm.
amazing things with nature. And at the start, you can always think that they're not as much interested. It being that maybe, oh, you think the interaction with wildlife, hearing their stories with wildlife might be a bit negative. But then
Mhm.
children, we find them to be so much curious. They're always curious to learn.
Mhm.
And a challenge can always be only with trying to force things with them.
Mhm.
Maybe time, I'd say time. When you
Mhm.
don't have enough time to engage these children on a daily basis, because once you start maybe just teaching them about some wildlife, they'll always be curious to learn more and more and more. So
Mhm.
at times, the challenge that I've had is when I only have like one session with children and then let them go.
Yeah.
I always fear that maybe the child, they still have lots of questions unanswered. But then
Mhm.
when you get a chance to like interact with children more than one, more than once, they get to they get to really appreciate, and they get to really just feel that they can also make a difference. Because you find at times children feel like they're so powerless.
Mhm.
Yes, they're seeing, it's not like they're not realizing, they think they just don't have a voice. But then when you engage them and just reassure them that by just sharing, maybe if it's about poaching, maybe a community member who's poaching, by just telling that person, oh, you know that maybe if you kill these animals, maybe lion, or maybe let me say an elephant, if you continue killing these elephants, maybe our children won't get to see them.
Mhm.
Or maybe, do you know it is bad to cut a tree? So when the kids, when you reassure this kid that whatever he or she told that person will, it's like a gospel. Sometimes you might think
Mhm.
you've not transformed someone, but just sharing what you've taught to them, or just reassuring them that they can also make a difference, is
Mhm.
always something that I've found to be positive. So I really get discouraged when maybe say you find the curriculum is so tight. Also after
Mhm.
COVID here in Kenya, the curriculum was super super tight. We couldn't get a chance to work with most of the schools because
Mhm.
you find they're rushing to finish the curriculum because a lot of time was wasted during COVID. Children were not able to go to school, so the schools were not in a position to allow people to just go and do the other co-curricular activities.
Mhm.
So you find they get to really get discouraged. And
Mhm.
also, the other challenge that I find is you find that most of the adults, or let me say the public, or maybe just let me say the government, there's a lot of bureaucracy. You find
Mhm.
people are not, the green spaces at times you just find it's been grabbed, or maybe when people think of any development project, they think of maybe green spaces. They're like, there's a lot of this open land here. Why can't we do something here? So
Mhm.
here you are trying to tell children the importance of these spaces, and then
Mhm.
the government, or maybe the public, or maybe some people who are not as interested, just do the opposite. So the kids get,
Mhm.
they really get confused as to what's really important, because you find they really just get discouraged. So I'd say there's a lot of need for for people to be, to just learn much, for people to just experience nature,
Mhm.
for people to, and then even funding, because you find taking children, even just one child to a conservation area, to like a wildlife park, it's a
Mhm.
bit expensive. So you find if you don't have good funding, you get to
Mhm.
miss chances of maybe providing opportunities for the children to just interact with nature. So,
Mhm.
but we find that just even one trip, just 1 day excursion to a wildlife area, or to maybe to a
Mhm.
natural, maybe even just a hike, it leaves
Mhm.
a very big impact in,
Mhm.
in one's life. It makes a difference. It makes a total difference to one's life. Just
Mhm.
interact with nature at a personal level. I think I've come to see that it's something that it's an opportunity that when people, you don't have, at times you might think engaging them on a daily basis in their school, or maybe at a
Mhm.
conservation education center, might be really productive. But then just a 1 day trip to some
Mhm.
children, because you see children also, even the public also learn differently. Just
Mhm.
getting to feel, getting to hop into a bus and go out there and
Mhm.
experience nature in its fullness will make a difference for this person. They'll get to see that, oh, this wildlife, they deserve to be out here in the wild. They don't deserve to
Mhm.
be caged or something. One thing I've learned is the children we take to zoos, or maybe caged sanctuaries, we always try as much as possible to also just ensure that we take them to open wildlife habitats, just so that
Mhm.
they get to know that wildlife need to be, they need to be free. Because you see,
Mhm.
when you also just take children to maybe zoos, in their mind they might always think that that's where they belong. They should
Yeah.
always be caged. So
Mhm.
you find when they grow up, maybe they might think there's no need of maybe leaving thousands and thousands of hectares of land for
Mhm.
for wildlife. They'll be like, let's turn this into real estate and let's have all these animals caged somewhere, or
Mhm.
maybe fenced somewhere. So
Yeah.
there's quite a lot of challenges, but
Mhm.
at least what I'm glad about is also for the Kenyan curriculum, they're adding the environmental education bit into the curriculum,
Uh-huh.
and
Mhm.
so they're doing it as part of their curriculum as well. And at least it's not as hectic, because one thing
Mhm.
when you put a subject to be like chemistry, maybe it needs to be, one thing we always try as much as possible is to make the subject nature. Nature should be
Mhm.
fun. Like it should always be fun learning about nature. It should
Mhm.
always be fun. Like learning about the things around you should, it's not something that should be like organic chemistry. It's something that should always just come,
Mhm.
like it's something that you should just be learning um, without struggling,
Mhm.
because it's something that you interact with on a daily basis. So you just get to appreciate it, and because you find
Mhm.
way back in the days, it's only that after colonization, or maybe because I come from a tribe in Kenya known as Luo community, and even
Mhm.
in Kenya there are like around 42 tribes, and all these tribes they used to have the local names of, be it trees, be it birds, be it animals.
Mhm.
There wasn't like a class to learn about these animals, maybe their names.
Mhm.
Like nowadays you find people we really struggle maybe just knowing bird names, really
Mhm.
struggle knowing some specific name. So science came and science kind of like made it very difficult for some people.
Mhm.
So yes, we have to align with science, but then you have to make it simple. You have to make it
Mhm.
interesting, and you have to
Mhm.
make it something that people love doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm. That's yeah. It's a really good point because and something I was thinking about is well, a couple of things I was thinking about when you were talking there was like, yeah, the kind of science is wonderful and some people love science, but yeah, you can't like, and it may be a controversial opinion given I like we're environmental educators, but like not every child needs to understand right down to like really complicated scientific cell biology. Like that's just not how a lot of kids learn, and it's not how a lot of kids want to learn about nature because it's not necessarily how their brain works, and it's not necessarily how they want to kind of engage. And it was the same for me. And like I love wildlife, and I love nature, and I love all of these things, but I don't need to know the scientific name of every plant that I see, and I don't need to know because I can love them without knowing that. I can love them knowing the common names or knowing kind of the whatever it is, the footprints that the certain like. So yeah, I fully agree that like yeah, it doesn't have to be that kind of
Yeah.
strict.
It needs to be simple and fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's really really interesting, and like bringing up the kind of colonization topic, I think is really really interesting because I think it's something that kind of I guess I hadn't thought about, and it's something that I wouldn't have like known anything about the impact necessarily on environmental education. Even like it's so interesting to hear that kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
perspective on it as well.
Actually, colonization wasn't much of a deal. It's only that now you see, English is not like the first language for most Kenyans.
Yeah.
It's like either a second
Mhm.
or a third language. So you find like now you've learned, maybe this animal in your local language, in your
Mhm.
first language, and then
Yeah.
now because you're being taught, because you find even I myself in most of the areas that I've been teaching in, they're
Mhm.
um, they're from different tribes. So even my language is different from
Mhm.
theirs. So for me to know maybe if they know their animals, we have to stick to one language, which is mostly English.
Mhm.
So you'll find some people you might think maybe the communities don't know much about
Mhm.
maybe wildlife, but then the only challenge there is maybe the language barrier.
Yeah.
They know these animals, but then they know them from the language in their language, and they
Mhm.
know them. They've interacted with them. They've coexisted with these animals. So
Mhm.
one thing I've come to learn about being a conservation educator or environmental educator is whenever you go to communities, also
Mhm.
those communities that are living adjacent to maybe
Mhm.
wildlife protected areas, never go there thinking that you know it all, you're the expert.
Mhm.
Never do that. Always go there knowing that these people also have a vast they're filled with knowledge, they're filled with passion for these animals. They know much about
Mhm.
these animals even than you, because yes, you're a professional in
Mhm.
this animal, but for them, their grandparents, even them themselves, they've lived
Mhm.
with these animals for years, for decades.
Mhm.
These animals are there because of their efforts. Yes, there might be cases of poaching, but
Mhm.
for those animals to continue being there, they've also contributed to them. They know the way these animals behave. It's only that they can't write a paper on it, but
Mhm.
they know the way these animals behave. At times, yes, the way they used to mitigate human wildlife conflicts might be a bit weird, or maybe might be a
Mhm.
bit on them, might be unethical, or might
Mhm.
be really gruesome. But they've coexisted. One thing for the animals to exist there, the
Mhm.
communities have coexisted with them. So just go there.
Mhm.
Yes, you want to teach them, but go there
Mhm.
and also be open to learning
Mhm.
from them, and don't go as the expert. Go as someone who's willing to to interact, go and engage the community, go and engage the children, make
Mhm.
it make them be the ones to be able to come up with the solutions, because they have the solutions.
Mhm.
You can only help smoothen, or maybe just help make these solutions practical, and maybe just help engage them and come up with other options as well. Yeah,
Mhm.
and come up with maybe ideas that maybe you've seen successful in some other areas. You tell them that,
Mhm.
oh, you've suggested this. Yeah, maybe to protect your livestock from lions. Um, we fence, or maybe we use, maybe um, you stay out in the night to guard your cattle.
Mhm.
But in my I've traveled a lot, and in this area, I realize people have lion lights, where you just put
Mhm.
lights, and then instead of having to patrol the whole night, just put lights at different locations, and these lights get
Mhm.
to the lion will think maybe there are people guarding this area. So just come
Mhm.
up with an innovative idea, but then that is after getting an idea from them as well, and then you propose
Mhm.
something, but never go there thinking that you have all the solutions.
Mhm.
Because if you don't engage the community, and if the community are not, they don't feel like they're they're they are not like involved,
Mhm.
um they can leave, they can say they're not part of that project, and it won't be as much successful.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah, that's it's really interesting. It's really really interesting, and like that's something that like I've been like I started my PhD at the end of last year, and I'm studying the impact of botanic gardens and the work that they've done around the world. And as part of that, I wanted to kind of do like reading into the history of botanic gardens and the history of the kind of science around them. And like it's so like it is like actively annoying, like where you're when you're like all of this information was already there. It's just this Eurocentric kind of idea of what science should be means that all of these ideas are listed in papers under kind of Europeans, but actually that's not the only source of knowledge, and it's not necessarily the original source of that knowledge. Like the information's out there, and it's yeah, really yeah,
Yeah,
it's yeah.
I think let me contribute to like what you're doing on botanical gardens.
Hmm.
um like there's a school we were working with, and we wanted to do what we advised, because we realized that there was that gap of children also engaging in ecosystem restorations.
Hmm.
And so we we came up with this idea, that how can we have children acting
Hmm.
to like how can we engage children to be able to first identify the environmental threats in their community, and then come up with solutions to maybe just mitigate these threats. And one of the
Hmm.
schools, the thing, the deal was that in identification of the environmental problem, the children had to come up with idea.
Hmm.
The children were supposed to identify the environmental problem in the area, and then propose ideas on how to mitigate it, and
Hmm.
also lead in the project implementation.
Hmm.
So there's a school that the children are like, oh, when we used to be kids, at times when we were still very very young, we could there used to be a lot of maybe insects around here. There used to be
Hmm.
butterflies, but then in the span of the last 3 years, the butterflies have really reduced. We are no longer seeing them.
Hmm.
Um, the bees that used to be around, we used to sell honey. My dad, when I was still a kid, they used to sell honey, but we are no longer seeing any
Hmm.
bees around. So what might be the problem? And then they realized that there's been a lot um of farming, um,
Hmm.
cash crop farming, mostly horticultural. So the people like it used to be um a wide area, mostly inhabited by wildlife. But then it being that most of the land there was still community land, people have been leasing the land to do farming,
Hmm.
and using all kinds of pesticides to just keep their tomatoes and other vegetables. It was mostly vegetable,
Hmm.
mm, mostly groceries, and also maybe at times even flowers in some areas. So there's been a lot of use of pesticide in those areas, and so the insects population in those areas greatly reduced. And so these
Mhm.
children were like, let's try and just come up with a botanical garden in our school. And so they went to their grandparents. They started asking, which are the trees that used to be common around here?
Mhm.
Which are the maybe flowers that used to be common? Because they didn't also want to just introduce maybe some flowers that
Mhm.
might maybe later on come to be invasive. They wanted to, because for them to bring back the insects that used to be around, they wanted to keep
Mhm.
it, to restore the area to what it used to be before. So
Mhm.
um, botanical gardens is something that's really interesting, more so when people start to think of it as a way of just reintroducing nature,
Mhm.
and more so in the city areas where people can just come up with small mini botanical
Mhm.
gardens. You get to just have quite a wide diverse species of animals coming
Mhm.
there. You might never know. You might think it's just, oh, a few plants that are planted in a small space, but then
Mhm.
the purpose the botanical garden are serving there is quite large.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
quite really large, and I think it's something that people should really embrace. People should be really just get to start mini botanical gardens in their areas. People should just have just start appreciating the diversity of
Mhm.
plants, of insects, of grasses, of
Mhm.
even if it's just even if it's a botanical garden of maybe just groceries or maybe fruits that we want to eat, but then
Mhm.
keep it diverse, keep it as natural as possible.
Mhm.
Yeah, just so that it doesn't. There's no need of having a botanical garden and yet you're also using maybe some pesticides that are not you're killing some maybe
Mhm.
pollinators, the insects. I'd really appreciate maybe if botanical gardens are kept as natural as possible.
Mhm.
That's my opinion.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I agree. I kind of prefer them to feel that just like a little bit more wild and a little bit more like, yeah, a little bit more seeing the plants in a way that you're kind of like, oh, this is more what it would be like to
Yeah.
see them normally rather than this is a perfectly curated,
Yeah.
manicured,
They need to
wonderful,
they
like,
need to be self-dependent.
yeah.
Yep.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's kind of led on nicely. Like I've been really enjoying our conversation, but I have just noticed the time and noticed how long we've been talking for. And like I feel like that means we need to start moving towards like the last couple questions I ask everybody this series. And that's it's sad, but you also have led kind of your last answer has prompted a good segue because you were talking about like how people need to appreciate all of the insects and all of these other kind of things that go on in the gardens and throughout the whole conversation, really, we've talked about like growing appreciation for nature in all sorts of different ways among different groups. And so I wondered, like, the question I'm asking everybody this series is of all the species that kind of you've worked with or encountered or educated people about, is there one that is really underappreciated that you would kind of like to highlight as like a people should know more about this? What one would you say it was?
That's that's um that's a tough one.
Yep. Yep.
So being a nature enthusiast, you get to really fall in love with lots and lots of species.
Yep.
Uh, in a way that you get to even just forget. At times, you even forget which is your most favorite
Yep.
species.
Mhm. Mhm.
But one species that I've come to really love are the hyenas.
Okay. Yep.
Yep. So you'll find that maybe when people go out to see wildlife, they'll never get to maybe just appreciate them. To
Mhm.
most people, they're not in any way beautiful, close to being beautiful.
Mhm.
But then they serve people always think of them as very dumb, or maybe not as skilled. They're not
Uh-huh.
that they're not good hunters. Um, they're not pretty to look at. Uh, they don't make very nice sounds.
Yeah.
But then, when you get to learn about them, you get to realize that they're totally the opposite of what you think of them.
Yeah.
Yes, they're not
Mhm.
as perfect hunters as some carnivores, but then they're good hunters.
Mhm.
When you get to try and just study their dimorphism, and maybe how study their ecology, you get to realize how unique hyenas are, by just people
Yeah.
even not being able to differentiate the male from a female from
Yeah.
just observations. It needs a lot of keen eye to be able to differentiate them, and also just getting to learn about how they live, like their
Mhm.
social structures
Mhm.
and the ecosystem role they play as as um as one of the animals that ensure that our ecosystems are clean. You get to learn, and I've really come to appreciate them. I've really
Uh-huh.
come to just it's an animal that I'd really love to get a chance to maybe just work with um, a hyena researcher, just
Mhm.
to get to really learn much more about them.
Mhm.
Yeah, just
Mhm.
from the family. Why is the adwolf part of the hyena family, and yet it's an insectivorous? Why
Yeah.
is where they There's so much questions, there are a lot of questions that I still have, and I think that's
Mhm.
why I become to appreciate them, and they become one of my favorite animals as well. Yeah, so
Mhm.
yeah.
I think that's a good one. Yeah, it's a really tricky question to be, especially when I'm asking environmental educators or people who are passionate about the natural world or conservationists. When you ask them to pick one, it's really tricky. So no, that was an excellent answer, an excellent answer. Because yeah, I do think like when people think about like wildlife and they think about and maybe they try and name species that are kind of charismatic or interesting or whatever it is, hyena wouldn't come to mind, but actually when you look at them and you actually think about them, they are really interesting creatures, really interesting.
Yeah.
um and like kind of intimidating, kind of scary looking, but also incredibly intelligent, incredibly like wonderful things. So yeah, good excellent answer. um Now, the kind of final question I ask everybody
Yep.
is, so we've talked about everything you do and we've talked about kind of all that sort of stuff. But if you had a bit of advice, if someone's been inspired by anything that you've said today, like and wants to be more involved in conservation, maybe wants to kind of yeah, help support their local wildlife or whatever, like what is your advice for somebody who like wants to get more involved in conservation?
um so my advice is okay, one thing that I've come to appreciate is that also when working with the children is there are more young people who are
Mhm.
taking action to protect nature, but then which always gives me hope, as I
Yeah.
see that the future generations are taking action to. There are a lot of people who are conscious about the environment and are taking action and being part of the conservation process. They're taking action, becoming stewards of their
Yeah.
nature as well. But then my my source of encouragement, I'd say, there's never there's always something new in nature, and
Mhm.
there's need for us to protect nature.
Yeah.
There's need for us to always just do the little much we can as a person. Always
Mhm.
encourage the people that whatever action they're doing, it's always a it always has an impact. So
Mhm.
mostly for the children, and always just tell them that every person, every little action you're taking, but you are able to make a difference for nature. So just be conscious, try and learn as much about nature as you can,
mm,
and think of any positive action you can do,
mm,
just so that you have, so that you make you have your area, at least just make a difference for whatever thing it is that you are in nature with. So always just think of an action, however little it may look like, and then
mm,
think of a solution, and then just
mm,
get to appreciate and be as curious as possible
mm,
as ways in which you can make a difference.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect advice, and I think it'll give people a lot to kind of think about and a lot of kind of questions to kind of take away and yeah, reflect on, and yeah, especially with all the other things we've talked about today. That's a fantastic kind of piece of advice to round out the kind of the conversation. Um, Before I let you go, is there any way if people want to keep up to date on your work or anything? Is there any kind of channels or websites or social media or things that they should follow? Or
Yeah. So um, recently I haven't been very active on social media, but that's where most of the time I do share my
yeah,
activity. My name is Toby Odhacha in
hmm,
at Tobby Odhacha in mostly nearly all my social media handles,
hmm,
or just search Tobias Odacha. And I hope to. I've been thinking of maybe just starting also a website. I hope I'll be able to
hmm,
do that soon. I don't have one as at now, but just to be able, because one thing I've noticed is, yes, as an environmental educator, I'm sharing a lot with the
hmm,
people, but then I'll need to reach a wider coverage this time. And this can
hmm,
only be either through social media or maybe through a platform where I'm able to just showcase whatever it is my passion is, and whatever it is
hmm,
that I need to share with people. So as at now, I'd say just the social media handle,
hmm.
uh, Tobias Odacha, or at Toby Odacha. And then, um, yeah,
Perfect. Perfect. I will put links to all of your various social medias in the description of this episode, so anybody who wants to find them can go there and find them. I'll also try and find some resources. Maybe I'll try and find a good kind of web page or something about hyenas that people can go in if they want to learn more about hyenas and all the other various things that we've talked about. I'll put down in the description of the episode. While people are looking down there, I'll also put our social media. So we're at Pangolin Podcast on all of the various platforms. So you can find us on there. And you can also find me on social media at the Only Jack Baker on Instagram or at Only Jack Baker on Twitter as well. So you can follow those if you are feeling so inclined. Um, Before you go, all I have to say is kind of a huge thank you to the listeners, of course, for listening. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, you can subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're using. And next week we'll be back to cover even more exciting, interesting, wonderful things, all based around the continent of Africa this season. So I'm very excited. And yes, of course, aside from all those people, I have to thank you, Toby.
thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time to chat to me, for all of your insights, and for all of your work. It's been so inspiring to chat to you and to get to know you a bit better. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And until next time, everybody. Thank you so much for listening once again, and goodbye.